Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to Ink to Prosperity. Welcome back to Vlogtober. Yay! Today I am going to be ranting about choosing a tarot deck, and this is specifically dedicated to people who either have a deck and aren't quite feeling it, or people who are looking to get their first deck. So, or if you just love tarot, like, girl, let's kiki together. Either way, I hope that you enjoy this video. Let's get into it. You're about to get your first deck, or you're ready to get a new deck, and you're like, how do I make a decision about what deck I want to choose? And disclaimer, I personally do not believe in your first deck should be gifted to you. I do believe that not everybody is coming from a place where they will actually be gifted a tarot deck, because people come from all different, backgrounds. They may be the first one in their family and their friend group to explore tarot, so why would they be gifted tarot? And so, you just never know somebody's situation today in today's modern world. So when I chose my first deck, which I will show here, it is the Shaman Tarot deck. I don't know if the camera's gonna focus, but Shaman Tarot, I love this deck. It's gorgeous. As you can see, it's so colorful. And this is the first deck I'd ever received, and I bought it for myself. I got it from the same crystal store where I took my first tarot class, so it's very special. And the first time that I went into the store, I was perusing. I knew that I wanted to get a deck, but I just didn't know what deck. I knew that the Rider-Waite was pretty common and was like the first deck, but like I didn't feel drawn to it, and so I was open to just being pulled to whatever deck called my name. So I was in the store, and I happened to see their like bookshelf of different decks, and I was like, oh my god, these are all so pretty. And all of the decks were just really cool, and I was like, oh, this is neat, but none of them like called my name. And I started from like the top of the bookshelf all the way down, and I got to the bottom of the shelf, and I saw the Shaman Tarot deck. It was like in row here, and I was like, what is that? What is this card? And I should have had the card that was on the back of the box, so that you could see like what it is that literally called to me. I found her. This card. And if the camera doesn't zoom in, I'm definitely going to put a picture on the side so that we don't even have to play those games. But this was on the back of the deck, on the back of the box, and I was hooked. I was like, yep, that's it. That's my deck. No questions about it. Bought it. And at that same time, they were telling me that, hey, there's a tarot class coming up. And I was like, sign me up. I got a deck and a class, same time. I loved it. This imagery at this point in time, like that was the moment where I was heavily connecting with my grandmothers, my great grandmothers in the ancestral realm, and so I was feeling very called to like grandmother energy. And so of course naturally this would be the card that would say like, hey, choose me. And it was like this deep knowingness in the pit of my belly. It just settled, and it was an anchoring of like, this is for me. When you are choosing your deck, I highly believe in that it should be a very romantic, intimate experience. But that's just because I believe that when you're choosing tools that you're about to like dive into, like self-discovery, healing, I think those moments should be romanticized, because you're literally taking a step towards alignment for yourself and for your family, or whatever the case, whatever the reason. But like, that's a huge step. It's just like, you know, for people who are choosing a college to go to, or choosing a partner, or choosing values, or like choosing a piece of jewelry that's supposed to memorialize some significant moment in your life. It should be an intimate experience, and it should be something that you like feel drawn to and feel comfortable and excited to choose this thing. So that's the perspective that I'm coming from. And so yeah, as far as choosing your deck, number one, make it an intimate experience. All right, the next step, rule, ritual, whatever you want to call it, that I think is important for you when you're choosing a deck is to actually really kind of take inventory of how you like to learn. For me personally, I am such a visual learner. I'm a visual person, and I'm a kinesthetic person. Like, I love to do the thing and learn by doing, and I love to see the thing being done, or to see how it's supposed to work out, a final product, and then, you know, like figure out how to get there. So those two learning elements really resonate with learning tarot, because you're flipping the cards and you're seeing the cards, and you're connecting them to your intuition, you're connecting them to your clair intuitive senses, and you're connecting them to real world experiences and situations. And so, for example, the Rider-Waite Tarot, love her down, but like, there are a lot of Catholic references, there are a lot of white people, there are symbols that aren't relevant, that weren't relevant at that time. Didn't feel that draw, that pull to the Rider-Waite at all. And with the Shaman Tarot deck, there is a connection to indigenous practices. There's a variety of skin tone people in there. Okay, we got some black and brown folks in this deck. Hello. It is a lot more nature-based, like different sceneries of nature. There's different animals in here as well. And there's also connection from like a very like rural living, but also connections to very modern. So there's a few sceneries in here, like there's a guy in a suit, but then there's also like this kind of stuff. And so this deck was highly aligned with my mindset at that time. And so for you, don't just choose a deck that you think you should choose. If you don't feel a connection to the typical Rider-Waite Tarot deck, don't get it. You may get it later in life, as you can clearly see, I have it. But that may not be the deck that really is going to help you grow and learn and expand your understanding of tarot and its system. And so my second advice to wrap all of this up is to say, take inventory of the way that you learn. Number three. If you know that you cannot remember names really well, please don't do like I did and get a deck that literally just has the numbers. Don't do it. Like, I know that's such a simple thing, but there are so many decks that don't have the names of each card. It's literally just a number, and sometimes you don't even get a number. It's just the picture. and it'll have like a reference to the number somewhere in one of the designs, baby, that is not the deck for you. It may be really pretty. It could be your pretty deck. But as far as your learning and study deck, girl, don't. Sometimes when we are studying tarot, there's this battle between like our logical brain and then our spiritual brain, for lack of better words. And so when you're constantly having to remember, like, what the fuck is the name of that card? What is the name of that card? What is the name of that card? That can sometimes block the actual messages and the intuitive senses from showing up, because you're so stuck in the reality of like, what is the name of this card? Especially if you are doing a reading and you're like, the pressure of like giving a reading, you're still in your student mode, and so you're like, okay, I know that this card means something and it's related to this, but I just can't think of the name of it, and you're like having a slight panic. Is that just me? That's just me. It'll make you feel like you're not a good reader. It'll make you feel like you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And the whole time it's just because, like, babe, you didn't assist yourself. It's an accommodation, okay? Like, get the deck with the name of the cards on it. It's that simple. There is a deck, if I remember the name of it, I'll put it on the screen somewhere. There is a deck that has like the names of the card and kind of like brief meaning, and it's a really great tool. I don't personally have it, but I've just seen it become a lot more popular over the past couple years, so that's a good place to start. And there's so many others, so that would be rule number 3. If you need the titles, get the titles. That's just like if you need subtitles on the TV, put them on. Like, don't try to be cute and not put them on. Number 4, not all decks are created equally. All right. I personally also really love decks that feel good in my hands. Okay. Some people do not care about the size of their decks or like the feel of the cards, and I love that for them. That is not me. Those who have sensory issues, not all decks are created the same, okay? If you've seen my how to make a card deck video, you know how much I went through to try to find a deck that felt good in my hands, size-wise and texture-wise. And that was just the tip of the iceberg, babe. So, yeah. So, with that, let me show you my 4 decks. So I have the Shaman Tarot deck. I love it. I have pretty small hands. I'm a short person, so this deck fits easily. As you can see, I can easily do this because I am definitely a I shuffle like so, you know, on a table. And I need a deck that easily is going to flip, like the card stock itself is gonna work. Now, most of the time when you're buying a deck, you're not going to know that because it's going to be sealed in a box or a bag. And so size, I guess, is probably the most relevant when you're choosing a deck. But the box for this particular deck was only a hair bigger than this. And so I knew that the size would really work for me, like lengthwise and widthwise. The Waite Tarot deck, I would say, is standard. It's not card playing size, but it's standard tarot card size. And it's a little bit smaller, as you can see, than the Shaman. I mean, like, not by much. Not by much, babe. Oh, wait. Just kidding. They're the same size. Okay, that's what it is. I was like, wait. Width-wise, you can see that the Waite is just a hair wider than the Shaman. So I do also love the size of the Rider-Waite, which, you know, like, I think it's great. My third deck, my favorite deck, is my Afro Avatar Tarot deck. This one is created by Colored Afros, and it is no longer in production, and so I feel very, very special. All of us that have this deck, we are truly just blessed. As you can see, in comparison to the Rider-Waite, it also is pretty much the same. The Afro Avatar is, I mean, just barely bigger than the Rider-Waite. Just barely. And so this also, and it also has a really nice shiny slippery feel, so it shuffles very nicely. It also shuffles very nicely this way. Yeah. That matters. I hate when cards like get stuck in a bunch when I'm trying to shuffle this way. And then lastly, my least used deck is the Ancestral Path Tarot deck. This one was actually gifted to me by a very near and dear friend, Annalisa. Thank you so much. We do a podcast together, Magical Aspirations. If you want to go check it out, I'll leave it linked. Okay, bye. So the Ancestral Path, this is also a very gorgeous deck. Like, look at the Temperance card. It's so pretty. And as you can see, like, it's stretching my hands. It's big this way. I can't even, like, you see how I was straining to open that? So this one is my least used deck, but I do use it. I will kind of, like, I mostly use it for myself. I won't use it for others, just because I think some decks should just be for yourself and not, you know, especially if you're a reader. It makes it more special. So, but the feel of the cards is great. The design on the cards itself are actually beautiful as well. But, you know, like, practically, I just can't use this deck, especially if I'm doing a lot of readings, especially if I was at a fair or I worked in a shop, or I had, like, back-to-back booked readings virtually. This one would really frustrate the fuck out of me. So I keep it for myself. Number 4 is is this deck gonna feel good in these hands? Number 5, simplicity versus complex images. There are thousands of tarot decks out there. And you yourself might be in a city where you have a few mystical stores, or you could, nowadays you can even go to Barnes and Noble, sometimes TJ Maxx, strangely, or maybe Target, and find a tarot deck or two. And so because of that, the bigger stores tend to have more of the popular, more common tarot decks. Amazon also sells them, and you may see a lot more decks that have very complex images. And so when I say complex images, I'm thinking of, like, the Shaman Tarot, and then this. Like, there's a lot going on. Like, you could really talk about the imagery here. You could talk about why her back is turned. You could talk about the swords. You could talk about the culture that they've decided to represent. Like, there's so much you can touch upon just in this Two of Swords card. And then here we have the Wheel of Fortune, where you could literally, like, you go in, baby. You could go in. Like, horses. Why do we have a black and white horse? Why is there lightning? Why is he in the sky? Like, there's so many things that you could touch on here. Versus the Rider-Waite, where we have the Hermit card, and it's literally just a person. But there's different elements and details around this person that you can really hone into. And so sometimes you may get overstimulated by having a lot of imagery to rely upon when you're pulling cards, and that's 100% okay. That does not make you a worse or better reader than the next person. It just makes you different than the next person. Shocker. And so I personally do not have a simple deck to show you. I'm so sorry. But I can give you an example. And this example I actually used when I was looking at tarot digitally on my phone. And I downloaded the app I would do a card pull a day. I would just press the button to see what card come up, and it would be the most simplest image like this. And it really helped me to understand the basics of that card, the foundation of that particular card that you see when you study different tarot text. If you know that you get overstimulated by having a lot of things when you're trying to learn and study something, reduce it down and try to choose a deck that has less imagery and more focused on like the basics of that, you know, of each card, so that you can really focus more on what's coming through for you intuitively. Because yes, the cards all have meanings, signs, warnings, and prophecies. Absolutely. However, your interpretation of the Temperance and my interpretation of the Temperance are always going to be colored by our personal experiences. And that is what makes going to different readers such a beautiful experience. It's the same with astrology. It's the same with mediumship. It's the same with tea leaf readings, you name it. Your personal self, you, are always going to be the extra layer to every single tool that you use. Okay? So, yes, you go to these classes, you watch these videos about what does this card mean. You read the guidebooks that come with the decks, and you're like, okay, I'm soaking in all this knowledge. But it's not gonna hit until you add you to it. Okay? Clock it. So that's my rant on like choosing a tarot deck. Let me know your experiences. Thank you for joining me for another Vlogtober. I hope you have a beautiful day. Mwah. Bye.